3 albums in, Black Sabbath had already experienced some unique success. They've been considered pioneers of heavy metal, which is a new genre of music that was more aggressive, more dark, and, well, very, very interesting as compared to the things that were going on at that particular time. They were experiencing some unnatural chart success for a band of this regard, especially considering all 3 previous albums were initially panned by critics. Volume 4 was actually no different in this particular regard. It was also dismissed by critics whenever it was originally released back in 1973. This was an album that was originally not even supposed to be entitled Volume 4, considering the first 3 albums had no semblance of the words volume or the numbers in the title whatsoever. Later on, the band said that it was a really stupid title. The original title of the album was meant to be Snowblind for one of the tracks on the album, which dealt with cocaine abuse. And it was getting to the point where the band was basically taking the money that they were getting from previous albums in order to secure studio space for the next release, and also get a briefcase full of drugs. Yeah, you could literally say that Black Sabbath was living the dream of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but they were definitely focusing a lot more on the drugs and rock and roll. The result of this is that they would record and think about ideas that they would quickly forget about or dismiss because they were just too out of it. And this made the creative sessions for this album somewhat trying, but at the same time the material in which they were able to come up with was nonetheless relatively good. Volume 4 is the first album of the Black Sabbath discography where I actually semi-disagree with a lot of the critics or with a lot of the longtime Black Sabbath fans. Many Black Sabbath fans will claim Volume 4 among the elite, with albums such as Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which we'll get to later on, with albums such as Paranoid, Master of Reality, etc. This is an album where I think that it is good. I actually find it to be above average for their discography, but this was the first album of theirs that really didn't hit the same way for me as the first 3 had. The first 3 all were extremely inventive and very innovative. They had a lot of great things to offer, and Volume 4 does as well. However, the first 3 albums seem to really be taking a creative leap each and every time that the record was being released and the writing sessions were going on. Volume 4, it seems like there was a little bit more of a focus on the combination and combined efforts of Paranoid and Master of Reality, which kind of created Volume 4. And it's very evident whenever you take a listen to this that it is like Paranoid in many ways. However, it's very darker and a lot heavier. It's like Master of Reality in the ways that it is darker, it is heavier, but there is experimentation on it. So the combination is something that should actually have bred a superior album to both of those in the opinions of many people, myself included. However, whenever I listen to this release, I feel it to be kind of average. There's a lot of Sabbath classics on this album, Snowblind being the one that comes to mind to everybody, perhaps the most. But instrumentals such as Laguna Sunrise also appear that are nice little chill experimentations, nice little chill passages that show a little bit of innovation and shows a little bit of diversity on a record that definitely was kind of getting to that point. This is a band that was experimenting around a little bit more instead of just being very direct with everything. And you have to remember that this is a band that started off as a band called Earth, and whenever you listen to Black Sabbath and whenever you listen to some of the elements of Paranoid, these were guys that were just making a heavy rock and roll record. And that is a style that was continuing onward. A lot of people will listen to Black Sabbath and wonder how this was classified as, true heavy metal at first. It's very strange whenever you hear somebody talk to it and say, and they're very inexperienced with metal, say, I don't understand why that was considered heavy metal. Of course, these are people that have really heard metal from the past 10 to 20 years and reflected that opinion upon it, thinking that humble beginnings, well, what the hell are those? They were thinking that it was going to be heavy from womb to current times. Volume 4 is an album that I feel just to be slightly above average. I don't know really what it is. It's a consistent record, one that I can listen to all the way through without any sort of difficulty, and one that does not lag at all. However, there's just not enough of a signature identification or a signature identity to this record for me to really call it amongst one of the Sabbath classics, and that's where I really differ a lot, in my opinion, than a lot of publications and a lot of critics. There are publications that cite it as the 48th best album in heavy metal history and things of that regard. However, I feel that this is just one that so far in the 4-album discography that I probably listen to and enjoy the least, which is kind of a weird thing to say. Overall, on their total list, this would certainly be one that would be within the top 6 or 7, but that's kind of a telling sign of where we're about to go and how quickly we're going to go there. Black Sabbath was starting to enter a very tumultuous time in their career. This is an era in which the drugs were really starting to overtake the band. And the releases, while they do have their classic qualities and are all very strong in their regard, well, they were starting to take a toll a little bit. The material was about to become a little bit stranger. However, before it gets worse, it could only get better. There's a couple of albums that are coming up that you guys will definitely enjoy if this is your first exposure to Black Sabbath, and will definitely want to hear my opinions and my takes. And those are albums such as Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and Sabotage. Black Sabbath is a band that right now was reveling in their success, and we're also starting to live the style that has been associated with rock and roll. Is this something that could hold up? Is this band going to continue on this very, very beaten and war-torn path? Or is disaster just a block away?